Hi friends, Rebecca here, the Dragon Librarian from Farmington Community Library, and Elwing and I are here today to talk to you about some fantastic new books that we think you might love just as much as we do. So the first book is really interesting because it's a part of a new trend that I feel like is happening with a lot of mythology stories, which is to retell mythology stories, but from the point of view of a main female character, which is super interesting. If you look at Circe by Madeline Miller, which has been really popular, The Silence of the Girls by Pat Barker, telling stories of the Odyssey and of the Trojan War, but from the female character's point of view. And it seems to be a new popular trend that's going on right now. And there's a new book that follows that as well, which is called The Witch's Heart. And that is by Genevieve Gornichec. The Witch's Heart. Isn't that cover just absolutely gorgeous? It's worth checking it out just for that. So this actually takes the story from Norse mythology. And if you're familiar even with just those Marvel movies with Loki and Odin and Thor, it takes the story of some Norse mythologies with Loki's wife, Angrboda. I think that's how you pronounce it. And it tells the story from her point of view. Now, Angrboda is very important because she is the one who gives birth to Fenrir, the huge wolf, and also the snake that is one of Odin's main enemies. And these are the creatures that will bring about the end of the world, Ragnarok. So it's really, really interesting story because it tells everything from her point of view and how the superiority of these gods like Odin and Thor and how they really don't care about anybody but themselves and their own families and really how terrible they treat everybody else, who especially people who are different, because they try to say that Angrboda's children are monsters, and they're not in the beginning. They're not monsters, and she just wants to protect her family. So this is definitely a story of motherhood, of family, of love. It's such a beautiful story. I never ever have thought about these Norse myths from Angrboda's point of view before, and it's really, really cool. You don't even have to be a huge fan of mythology to enjoy this, honestly. If you go into it and don't really know these characters or what's going on, the story does a really good job of explaining it without being too heavy-handed. So if you're just looking for a great story about, like I said, motherhood and family and the lengths people will go to protect these things, it's pretty fantastic. And it's called The Witch's Heart. Very good. Now, jumping gears for a moment, this is a completely different type of story, and it's called Dark August by Katie Tallo. Now, I love a good thriller. I really do. And I tend to get really excited when new books by some of my favorite thriller authors like Ruth Ware, Riley Sager, when they come out, because I know they're going to be good. But it's also really fun sometimes to just browse and find a debut thriller by a new author to try it out and see if it's any good, see if the author's any good. And in this case, the case of Dark August, I was pleasantly surprised because I really liked this a lot. It didn't feel like a debut to me. It felt like this author has been writing for years. And look at that cover. It's pretty ominous, right? So this is the story of a young woman named Augusta, who Gus is really what she's called, and her police officer mother died when she was just a kid. So she was given into the care of this great aunt who was very elderly, didn't really care much for her, sent her off to a boarding school. So she's never really had a good home life, a good solid place that she can feel like herself and feel safe. So when this great aunt dies, she gets a letter about it, and she goes to this great aunt's house because she's left her everything. And among everything else that she finds all this information from her mother's last cold case that she was working on about these two missing people. And Gus gets sucked into this. She gets sucked into the story. She gets sucked into the information, like what happened to these two people. She gets completely obsessed with this and tries to solve it herself. And as she finds, there are some people who do not want her to solve this, people who have perpetrated the crime. So it's definitely a fast-paced, but also very character-driven, which is really great to see in a thriller, because a lot of times thrillers basically focus on the story and moving the story rather than developing the characters. But Gus is a very believable, if not all the time likable, main character. She's gone through a lot. She's had a tough life, and some of the decisions she makes are maybe not the best, but you can definitely feel for her and be really interested to see what is going to happen next and where she's going. So I absolutely love this. Like I said, this is a debut book from a debut author. If you're looking for a great thriller and you want to try something new, this is a really fantastic one to go with, because, like I said, it's a great story, and the characters in it, especially Gus, are particularly very worth investing your time in. So that is Dark August by Katie Tallo. Okay, well, that is what we have for you guys today. I hope that they both sound really interesting to you. They are available at the Farmington Community Library, so please, please, please feel free to, if you want, put them on hold and you can pick them up with our curbside service, or you can just come into the building and at either location and get them there that way as well. So thank you so much, friends, and have a wonderful rest of the day.